It's another Tuesday here at Locked On Browns. You know what that means. Lance Reisland in the house, breaking down what went right, what went wrong. There was a lot more of the latter for the Browns against the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll talk about it coming up on the Locked On Browns podcast.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Dog Pound? I'm Spencer German, your host of the Locked On Browns podcast, and proudly covering your Cleveland Browns each and every single day in the land and on the road. The Browns obviously lost to the Steelers this weekend. Lance Reisland is here to talk about the offensive side of the ball, what he saw, how we can grade, if we can even grade Dillon Gabriel. We'll talk about the defensive side of the ball. How did the Steelers neutralize the Browns pass rush? And we'll get into some other things as I think the heat turns up a little bit on Kevin Stefanski. How do you keep a locker room together when you're 1-5 and there's just a lot of things going on right now and frustrations are mounting? We'll get all those things from Lance here in just a second, but I do want to thank you for being an everydayer at the Locked On Browns podcast, making us your first listen every single day. Remember, you can find Cleveland Browns content with Locked On Browns every week, Monday through Friday, guaranteed. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Lance, we always we'll get into some of the plays here in just a second, but I did want to just kind of start by asking, because I talked about this post-game, like Dillon Gabriel's second career start, and it was tough sledding in that game in general. How can you really grade any quarterback's performance when he's under constant duress that way, but especially a young quarterback's performance, understanding sort of the circumstances and the hand that he was dealt there? Because it felt like, to me, yes, there's some issues that he didn't help the situation in some respects, but it also felt like it was a really hard game to look back on and watch back and be like, I'm putting this one on Dillon Gabriel. Like there was a lot that went wrong in front of him that I think led to some of those issues as well.
Well, first and foremost, they lack talent on offensive side of the ball. They lack skill players, and that's the first thing. So now he has his hand in the pot as well. As my dad always said, he's got his hand in the garbage can as well right now. And there's only one way to get out of it. You got to work through it. And the easiest thing to do is to blame, is to move on, is to put the quarterback's wrong. We need Shador, we need Dillon, whatever it may be. The thing is, he's not throwing. Sometimes he does miss. He's not stretching the ball vertically when sometimes those throws are there. He is under constant pressure. And when you get hit constantly, it's hard. And I can only imagine at the NFL level. I've been hit at the high school and college level a number of times in a game, and I could only imagine with those guys hitting you at that level, at that size and that speed, it does kind of wear on you a little bit. So obviously second start, another tough defense. But make no mistake, he has his hand in it too. Then he's getting drops. That does not help. He doesn't have an elite receiver right now because Judy's not playing that way. They don't have anybody behind Judy. Njoku, they have trouble getting the ball to Njoku. I still think Njoku does a great job when he gets the ball. But the bottom line is the Browns right now are absolutely getting destroyed up front. And those inside guys are playing okay, but they're not playing at the level they once were. And the tackles, I like Levinston. I think he's a good kid. And I think he does some good things in the run game. And it's not a lack of effort, but he's a liability in pass protection right now. And we talk about taking deep shots and things like that. It's hard to do when you're, like you said, he's under constant duress. And then when he does get protection, sometimes he misses. And then it kind of all builds on each other. Then they can't run the ball, and it's 2nd and 11. And then you get these fronts and coverages. And bottom line is, a quarterback can't it's hard for a quarterback and a young quarterback, and maybe not an elite quarterback, which we don't know if any of these guys are yet, when they're constantly getting hit in the face, which is what's happening right now.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And it's, exactly what I talked about post-game, just the idea that I know people want to point and say it's this quarterback or they should go to the other quarterback and whatever. And I want to see Shador at some point too, but you do have to sort of give some respect to Dillon for sort of standing in there and trying to play amidst the circumstances. And we know that this offensive line right now is a problem, and the skill positions are a problem. And along those lines, one of the first plays we're going to look at here was a drop that Harold Fandon had late in this game. I think it was late third quarter, about 4 minutes left to play in the third quarter. I actually thought that this in general was the best play that Gabriel had on the day, in terms of like, he felt the pressure, moves out of the pocket, and then delivers a nice ball. But once again, on the receiving end of things, can't connect because it's a drop. What did you kind of see on this play, and just kind of break it down for us, Lance?
All right. Well, see on the right side, you have Bunch. So with this for us would be Bunch bunch nub, because the nub would be the tight end, Njoku, over on the left side. So if you start from left to right, you have Njoku, who's going to chip, and he's going to run just a little sit route right there, try to hold that linebacker right there. And then you move across. Then you have in the bunch, you have Judy. He's on the left side of the bunch. The star, Fannin, he's the guy where the ball is going to go, is in the middle of the bunch. And then you have Isaiah Bond, who's on the outside. Now, Bond is going to run the out. Fannin is going to run the deep over. Judy is going to run, like I said, that little settle. Njoku, as I said, is going to run the little sit route. The tailback, Judkins, is going to run a check. He actually gets upfield, and he shouldn't. But he's just trying to do scramble drill because Watt gets pressure and forces Dillon to his left, and Dillon takes that big shot here and delivers a great ball.
Yeah.
Now, this is a classic example of where he does a really nice job of hitting the open guy. I'm not sure Fannin scores, but the safety's not over there in time. So he might turn and score. I don't know. And there's a possibility that he might. But this is the idea. When he misses, maybe it's not pass protection. And then he misses with pass protection. And then he gets hit here. They all run good. Fannin runs a really good route, and you get a drop. So you just have these constant things that are going against this offense. But this was, after I saw the hit he took when you said, Riz, let's go over this, I think you're right. This is his best throw because he takes a big shot. He stands in there and delivers a great ball to Fannin. And Fannin, who's been pretty reliable, but has had some drops. And when you're an offense struggling, those drops seem a lot bigger than when you're not struggling. So, again, nice throw over him. Good concept by Kevin Stefanski. Players got to make plays too.
And this was man coverage, correct?
Correct. So if you look at, let's go over here. So if you look over on the bunch side, that's a great question. So if you look over on the right side, you're going to see Fannin with, he's going to have Eccles. Eccles is going to bunch him and he's going to bump him. Now, if you look behind him, he's got Ramsey on the inside and he's got Porter on the outside. What Ramsey and Porter are doing, they're going to call a banjo call or a bracket call or whatever. We called it banjo. But basically what it means is that Ramsey is going to take the first receiver that goes inside. On the outside, the corner is going to take the first guy that goes outside. Because Fannin immediately goes inside across the field, Ramsey jumps him. And then Eccles kind of sits in that flat area. So that's kind of how teams cover that bunch stuff in man coverage. Because if you try to stay with your man, you get rubbed and picked. Yeah. So what a lot of teams will do is they'll banjo, which means one guy's got the guy going in, one guy's got the guy going out, and somebody's going to sit in the middle. They do it different ways, but that's the general idea of it.
Yeah. And I like you said, the reason I like this play for Dillon too was it was one of the only times that he kind of had an opportunity to navigate the pocket a little bit. Like the pressure was coming from Watt and he was able to kind of boot out to his left a little bit. You're right. He takes a big hit at the end, but he kind of eluded it for a moment, got himself set again. And then, like you said, delivered a beautiful pass to Fannin. And it felt like one of those plays where, all right, he's learning, like he's kind of learning on the fly here. He's moving and he was able to actually make a play. And it just stinks that it ends with Fannin dropping the pass. And that was on second down. And the very next play, it's a pass to Njoku that also gets dropped. And so then the drive stalls and you have to settle for a field goal. And I think this play sort of encapsulates just some of the issues that have plagued the Browns, I think, in general this year. I know you want to get to another sort of concept here that also involves the tight end, but the other tight end and David Njoku, because you sort of noticed that there's been some missed opportunities with Njoku down the field for Dillon Gabriel. So we'll go there next.
Yeah, so, not everything has been on everybody else. Dillon has his hand in some of the issues too. So first play of the game, the Steelers going to come out with an extra tackle on the right side. The Browns. The Browns are going to come out with their first play of the game. They're going to go 13 personnel. They're going to have Jerry Jeudy on the left by himself. The three, they're going to have Njoku, Whiteheart, and Fannin over to the right. Now, because it's first down, first play of the game, obviously the Steelers pack the box. They're going to get in their mint front, their odd front, where they're going to have 5 down linemen. But you're going to see they have 10 right near the line of scrimmage. And this is kind of what you want. You're an offensive coordinator. You kind of dictated first down, 13 personnel. They're all thinking run. So they come up, they show it. You see the Steelers all make their calls. Everybody's going to try to adjust to the unbalance because if you look, the Browns have 5 to the right side, and they run the ball very successfully, at least in the past they have. So this is what Kevin Stefanski does really well. So they start in this, and then they go to the next slide. If you don't jump to the next slide, then they go here. So they say shift. So what ends up happening is in that 13 personnel, they get an empty. So if you look on the left side, Junkins is going to go outside of Jeudy. You're still going to get the corner who stays with Jeudy. The backer goes out with Junkins. That immediately tells the quarterback, Gabriel that it's man coverage. Once that backer goes out, man coverage. If the corner is to bump out, zone. Really, really simple. If you look on the right side, starting on the outside, Whiteheart is 1 strong. He's got the corner on him. The safety is going to cover Fannin. He's in 2 strong. He's a 2 strong. And then Njoku is 3 strong. And what ends up happening is that Patrick Queen, who likes to tackle, he is in charge of Njoku. But he didn't really realize that. So in the midst of how quick the shift was, this is the miss by Gabriel, because he should know, regardless if Queen knows that he's got Njoku, he's still a mismatch in coverage for, against David in man-to-man. But you're going to see he drops coverage. And if you watch the tape, you're going to see him hold his hands. Now we get into it, right? So this is kind of how it looks after everybody's moving. So on the left side, Judkins is going to clear it. Corner runs with him. Underneath, Judy's going to run a jerk route where he's going to show outside and he's going to cut across the middle. Corner does a nice job of staying with. However, you're going to see Njoku. So the linebacker drops because it's a 4-man front. But there is Queen, the star in red. He's in charge of 3 strong. He does not cover him. So then obviously Fannin runs the clear. Whiteheart runs a comeback. But immediately this should be an indicator. Now, if you watch the cut up, which if you check my Instagram and X, you'll see that David Njoku runs free and Gabriel doesn't hit him. Now, in the pocket, he feels pressure from Watt and he misses it. And all he's got to do is have some pocket awareness and move 2 steps to his left, and he would see Njoku running wide open. So this is kind of why you get in 13 personnel. You show run, you get the mismatches you want. They got Njoku on Queen. Queen doesn't cover him. Even if he was covering him, this is a win for the Browns. You got what you wanted because you got in heavy personnel. This is a miss by the quarterback on the opening play of the game.
Yeah, and I think there's a number of times, Lance, where I go back and watch, and even in real time, where I notice that I think Kevin Stefanski's done a good job of still getting his tight ends open in a lot of situations, especially Njoku. And I think that I've noticed that Dillon's missed them at times. And I think that's still something that he is working on. I like that you gave us something there where it's like, hey, here's one play that's on somebody else. And then here's a play that, Dillon can sort of still get better and learn and develop. And I think that is kind of the game that's kind of the cat and mouse that's happening right now, where it's like, yes, some of it is on Dillon, but some of it also is just on the guys around him. And that's kind of the problem with the Browns, I think, in general right now offensively. We'll go to the defensive side. How did the Steelers neutralize the Browns pass rush? And we'll take a look at that first play of the game, which was a big one for the Steelers, and kind of what happened on that one. That's coming up next on the Locked On Browns podcast. This episode is brought to you by Built. Nobody likes paying rent, but if you must, you might as well get something for it. That's where Built comes in. Built is changing the game by turning your rent payment into real rewards you can actually use. When you pay rent through Built, you earn flexible points that can be redeemed towards hundreds of hotels, airlines, and future rent payments, your next Lyft ride, and more. But Built isn't just about rent. It's about rewarding you around your entire neighborhood. I love that Built allows you to, when you pay that, the thing I love about Built is that when you're able to pay your rent and it works for you, you're earning points every month on something that you already have to pay anyway. So turn your rent into rewards and start earning points around your neighborhood by going to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNFL. That's JOINBILT.com/LockedOnNFL. Make sure you use that link so they know we sent you. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis, maybe even tried it for yourself. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougiette Ready. Rougiette Ready is the next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rougiette's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast on average in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. If traditional options just aren't working for you, Rougiette might be the answer. With over 150,000 men who have already made the switch, you can join them. Ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom? Head to Rougiette.com, RUGIET.com, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for 15% off your first order. That's RUGIET.com, promo code LOCKEDONNFL, and make sure you use the code so they know we sent you. All right, we go to the defensive side of the ball here, Lance. And one of the things that sort of stood out to me was this Browns defensive line. We know how dominant it is, but it just didn't seem like they had a lot of opportunities to get home. I do think the Steelers defense, or the Steelers offensive line rather, played a pretty good game overall. And that obviously contributed to it. And we know that Myles Garrett gets everything thrown his way. He was getting chipped per usual. They had a lot of people sort of go in his direction. What did you just notice about how the Steelers kind of kept that unit at bay that we know is so important to the success of this defense and this Browns team?
Well, first thing they did was they don't ever leave Myles by himself. And some teams say it, but they really don't. They don't ever leave him by himself. They do a great job of chipping on him, but they also create great angles when they chip. And at some point, we'll talk about how I think some people, and Kevin Stefanski used to chip like this, but they don't do it anymore like that, where the chip guy is a little bit wider and they create good angles on Myles. The other thing is that Aaron Rodgers gets rid of the football really quick. And everybody talks about it. Everybody talks about his yards per pass. Sometimes that's on purpose because he understands and processes very well. He gets rid of the football very quick and they run routes. Now, the other thing that happens is he's got an alpha. So you see sometimes you win with players like on the first drive where he threw the fade. Campbell had great coverage and made the catch.
Nothing you can do.
Yeah. So great coverage. It was played really, really well. You'll take that because you did the right thing. And sometimes you just got to throw it up to your alphas. And I'm not sure, besides David Njoku, if anybody for the Browns can go beat somebody, even if they're covered. And that's that for me. I think David Njoku can. So that helps. So they're always going to chip him. They change the launch point. They run at him, which I think a lot of teams stay away from Myles. The Pittsburgh runs at him. And I think that's important because even if he makes a play, it tires him out a little bit. So there's just a plan. There's body shots that the Steelers do a really nice job of. It's the same kind of plan that a lot of us have with a great pass rusher. You got to make sure you chip him in true passing situations. You got to run at him to tire him out. You hope you have a guy on the outside that can win, and you get rid of the ball really, really quick. It's not rocket science, but sometimes the Browns really struggle with some of these concepts because they get behind. And I think, I've been there too, so I'm not saying anything wrong with that, but you start to press and you start to try to get all back at once. That's just not how this Browns offense works.
Yeah, your points on Aaron Rodgers especially are sound, man. Like there was a couple times in that game where he kind of looked like vintage Aaron Rodgers. Like the big knock lately has been like, he's older, he can't move like he used to. But there was that one touchdown throw he had where he kind of like rolled out a little bit to his right and then threw it back across his body towards like the middle of the end zone. I mean, that was a freaking incredible play. That was like Aaron Rodgers at his best. But yeah, he gets rid of the ball very quickly. And I think that is kind of the advantage to having a quarterback like that, especially against this really good Browns pass rush. So you're 100% right there.
Well, when I watch all the films, especially early in the season, I try to watch as many games as I can, and I got to watch every game leading up to this one, every rep that he's taken. I think what happens with Aaron Rodgers is last couple of years, I'm not sure Mr. Rodgers comes into camp in the most physically gifted shape because when you watch him during camp, and I get it, it's year whatever it is for him. But he's starting to get in shape, and I agree with you. He moved his feet very well. They were coming off a bye week. They probably conditioned a little bit more. He's starting to really get in shape. And not only did he move the ball well outside the pocket, but the thing that I thought he really struggled with coming into the Browns game is that movement within the pocket. And he did that really, really well too. That's something Dillon and Shedeur and these guys, young guys, can is just watch how he moves within the pocket and gets rid of the ball and avoids contact.
All right, let's take a look at this play. This is the first play of the game that the Steelers obviously ran, and it was a good one. There was two up at the same time, but this was obviously a miscue on the Browns' part, but a big explosive play to sort of start the game off. 36 yards to Darnell Washington. What kind of happened here on this one?
All right, so let's take a look. So Steelers do the same thing when they come out, right? So we went over the Browns, how they came out and showed run. Steelers do the same thing. So you're going to see 10 guys within 3 to 4 yards of the line of scrimmage. So if you look over to your right, the Steelers are unbalanced. So they actually have a guard, 2 tackles, and then Jonnu Smith, and then the wing is going to be Washington. Washington pre-snap is 1 strong. Smith is 2 strong. And then if you look over on the other side, right, you get DK Metcalf. He's 1 weak, and he'll actually drag across the field. Now, when you look at this, if you look at 7, who I have in the triangle, 7 is Campbell. Campbell is in charge of 1 strong. Whoever 1 strong is, it doesn't matter. Motion after motion, he's in charge of 1 strong. Hickman, who is the guy I starred, he's too strong. This is going to be Hickman's fault, but for me, it's more the fact that Campbell's so new. We don't know who's supposed to make that call. So if you go to the next slide, Spence.
Yep.
So if you go to the next slide, so here's what ends up happening. Washington goes in motion. Now, when Washington goes inside of Jonnu Smith, Smith now becomes one, which means that Campbell and Hickman have to switch because now Campbell, he has Jonnu Smith, who's going to run to the flat, and Hickman now has Washington. They switched men because Washington motioned inside to become too strong. So if you look at it, it's just really, really simple motion. It just changes. So when you see in the NFL, you see in college, when you see these teams do these little motions in and out, that's what they're trying to do against man teams. They're trying to make you think about who's got who. And then if you look at it, Hickman, these guys, it's first down. They got an extra tackle in the game. Warren is back. They got an older quarterback. This is a tremendous call by their offensive coordinator. And if you look at the thing, it's just a levels concept. Remember, levels is just 1, 2, 3. I talk about it all the time with you.
Yeah.
This is just another way to get to a levels concept. He comes off now. Aaron Rodgers knows he's going to work top level because of the run action, and obviously Hickman bites on the fake. He's not really sure who he has because of the motion. And Campbell actually does, the new guy actually does the right thing and takes who becomes one strong, which is Smith. Ends up being a big play, really simple concept, levels concept, but the formation, the extra tackle, and then Aaron Rodgers with a great throw to Washington, who big play to get the game started.
Yeah, what I noticed on the play too was the play fake, I think also contributed to Hickman not necessarily running with Washington. I think he sort of played the run and then Washington slipped behind him. And the other thing that I think stood out too was Grant Delpit, who's the one guy back in cover one to sort of help if in case of emergency. I think he kind of bites on the run a little bit, but also he starts running with DK because Denzel has to run all the way across the field with him. And so he doesn't really notice that Washington slipped behind either. And so it kind of is this perfect storm to set the big play. But yeah, that was a good play design by Pittsburgh to sort of start things off. Also, nothing screamed AFC North football, Lance, like the Steelers coming out in like a 12 personnel plus one with the linemen. And then the Browns coming out when they were on offense with 13 personnel. I was like, this is AFC North football right here.
Well, and then you get the modern take, right? They go extra tackle, throw a corner out. Browns go 13 personnel, go empty, right? So it's kind of the new wave kind of way to look at things. But yeah, and going back to Delpit, Spencer, I think the thing about Delpit, he's a great football player, but that's why and I don't fault him. I really don't, because I've always believed you don't make a player do what he doesn't do well. Shame on you to make, for me, and I love Coach Schwartz. I think he does a great job. And I know he's doing everything he can, and he's kind of outmanned right now. But Delpit as a free safety is a liability because Delpit likes to tackle. And when you get something like that, he's going to come running in the alley because he likes it. That's where the Browns have that's where this defense has struggled, that free safety. You and I have talked about it for a couple of years now. That free safety's got to be a center fielder and worry about pass and worry about turnovers and not worry about tackling so much. Now, he could be the last line of defense, but there's a great example of that's not his guy, but he's got to be the last guy defense and make that and get there and knock that ball down.
Also, big on that play was, I believe it was Tyson Campbell, actually, who got back into the play. Yeah, it was. And then he knocked the ball out at the last second when Washington was going out of bounds. Hey, different bounce. Maybe that stays in the field of play, and then you have a turnover on the first play, and you turn sort of like a negative into a positive there. So I thought
Campbell did a great job.
I was going to say, I thought Campbell, it was evident that the Steelers were attacking his side of the field. They were trying to get DK on him, and it worked. And other than the double move that he got beat on for the touchdown, he was in tight coverage pretty much the entire game. You mentioned that one throw earlier where like it was just a perfect throw from Rodgers. There was no defense for it, but he was right there step for step with DK. I think you saw the reasons why the Browns really like him. He's very physical, and I thought he played pretty well, all things considered, especially coming in there in like a short week with like 3 days to get ready. So,
no, there's no question. And I've argued with a lot of people because that was like when we traded Newsome. Newsome's not a great man coverage. What Newsome is, he's aggressive and he's a good ball player, and he was playing really, really well. But Newsome's going to be better in Jacksonville because his eyes will be in the backfield a lot more because there were a lot more zone. Yeah. Newsome's not an overly big guy. Tyson Campbell is a 6'1", pushing 200 pounds, elite track speed, likes to play man coverage. And the argument people had was, well, they're not going to be as much man. Well, I told everybody, if he's playing, coming in on Tuesday, if he's playing, they're going to be in man, because that's like basketball. I got you, you got me. That's it. So that tells me this team is going to play a lot more man. And I think he proved his worth after a short week traveling the country. And I think he's a guy who could play these bigger receivers. And it gives them some flexibility with Ward, because Ward continues to be a lockdown corner.
No doubt about it. Final segment, we'll talk to Lance about, I think, what's an interesting topic from the mind of a coach. Hot seat getting turned up a little bit on Kevin Stefanski. How does he keep this locker room together when things seem like dire straits in Cleveland? We'll talk about it coming up on the Locked On Browns podcast. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and the NFL season is obviously well underway. FanDuel is ready to make sure that you're ready for kickoff every single week with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300. That's right, $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. There's nothing better than following the NFL season with FanDuel, and frankly, the best part is they have options for whatever type of bettor you are. Maybe you're a prop bet person. Maybe next week you want to put a bet down on Dillon Gabriel passing touchdowns being at least 1 or +1. You can bet that. You can also combine that benchmark with a few other props, maybe even throw a money line on there and build a same game parlay, or you can just jump on a money line in real time as the action unfolds in front of you. The options are endless, and it's what makes every game, whether your team is playing or not, even more exciting. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, so we always like to use this final segment to just kind of pick Lance's brain on a few things. We'll get into a little bit of a scouting report here coming up on the Miami Dolphins, which I think is going to be an interesting and telling game between two teams that are obviously in really precarious situations right now. And that's kind of where I want to start this conversation with you, Lance, because I don't think the Browns are firing Kevin Stefanski midseason. If they have another losing season like 3-14, I think I don't know that it's just like a guarantee he's back next year, even though I know some people believe that, because I'm sorry, like, it's the NFL, and in this league, you have 2 seasons like that in a row. I think all bets are off, and I think Kevin honestly knows that. But as things stand right now, you heard the comments from Myles Garrett after the game. He's talking about being frustrated that they're losing the same way every single week, where the offense just can't seem to score and the defense kind of keeps them in as long as they can. And that's where you start to worry about that sort of cracking in the locker room, and that sort of trickling down to other players. And if Myles feels it, I'm sure others feel it. So if that's the case, like, how do you deal with that as a coach? How do you keep your team together when things seem really, really at their worst right now? You're 1-5, offense isn't working, and there's just a lot going wrong that you don't necessarily have the answers to. And you still have 11 games to go, like to sort of save your job here and try to get this team back on track. How do you manage that locker room in that sort of situation?
Well, Kevin, every coach, there's different ways to do it. For me, it was very, very simple. It's lonely on top. And as a head coach, you're not trying to appease everybody, and you are fighting for your job. So for me, I don't want to say I made people uncomfortable, but I held everybody accountable, from coaches to myself to the players. And we were going to make sure we were doing everything we could to get right. Now, that doesn't mean Kevin Stefanski has to do that way, but I'll tell you what, no one feels bad for you. You can't listen to people. I will say this, as the head coach, you're walking in, those assistant coaches are down, those players are down. You got your alpha saying, I didn't do much. You would say we're losing the same way. Now, I think you and I both know how we feel about Myles Garrett. He's arguably one of the top 5 defensive ends ever. However, he didn't play great on Sunday. And I don't care if he's getting doubled, because Aaron Donald gets doubled every time. And J.J. Watt gets, what I'm saying? Like, these dudes get doubled and they still have impact. And he didn't have a lot of impact because he's getting frustrated, in my opinion. So, and I understand that because he's still a young guy. So as Kevin Stefanski, if I was in this situation, there's only 2 things you can do. One is, I don't care what anybody else says. I don't care what the media says. I don't care what any of us think. That's the first thing. Secondly, I'm closing the door and I'm telling all my team that I don't care what anybody thinks. Everybody says the offense is conservative. Well, why is it conservative? Well, because we're not executing. and we're not executing because maybe I'm not coaching well enough. I'm going to coach better. And you guys execute, hold each other accountable. And then you go out and you practice and you get it right and you do it over and then you get it right again. And you keep doing it until you get it right. And you change things up just a little bit because things aren't going well. But the last thing you could do is kind of go, oh, woe is me, because no one cares. Figure it out. You make a lot of money. And whatever it is, you're not in, you coach football. It's a passion. I know these guys make a lot of money, but I guarantee you these guys would coach high school football too. If football is an itch that, it's hard to explain, but that's the idea. Coaching is easy when you're winning. Everybody tells you how great you are. Kevin was coach of the year twice and he's got all that kind of stuff. Well, do it now. Everybody says you stink. What are you going to do about it? You're backed into a corner. You sit there and you take it, or you fight your way out of the corner. It doesn't mean you're going to win, but you go down swinging. And people say he should give up play calling. I'm not giving up play calling if I'm Kevin Stefanski. This is my job on the line. This is what I do well. I don't care what anybody says. You know why? We're not executing right now. I'm calling plays because if we get fired, I'm going down swinging with my bullets.
Yeah,
so that's
kind
of how I would be it. I'm not listening. I'm going, and I'm that idea of work works. Go back to work and figure it out.
Yeah, I think that's it's a great perspective. It's a fair perspective. I think what's interesting too from Kevin's perspective and the way he sort of talks after these games, and you can, if you think I'm wrong in this, you can correct me. But when he's up there and because he's saying the same thing every game, right? After every game, it's what's going wrong. And he's like, we just got to play better. And when I hear that at this point, Lance, like, it kind of makes me feel like I honestly, it's more of a red flag in terms of like Kevin's job to me, because that tells me like he doesn't have all the answers, right? And as the head coach, you're kind of looked to have all the answers. You're looked at to have all the answers. But when he's saying, we just got to play better, that tells me like he knows there's not a quick fix. They're not going to be able to fix their offensive line here in the middle of the season. It just kind of is what it is. He's not going to be able to fix the fact that guys keep dropping passes and that's a problem. He's not going to be able to fix the fact that he has a rookie quarterback that's kind of developing and learning on the fly. Those are problems that are kind of bigger than him in that way. And so when he's sitting there saying, we got to play better, I got to coach better, I think that's him sort of admitting to everybody, like, it's like, I can't fit, like, this is where we're at, right? Like, we're kind of just stuck. Like, there's no quick elixir that's going to make this all better. We just have to kind of keep pushing through and fighting. And if it doesn't get better, like that's where obviously you start to worry about, like, if him saying that doesn't turn into them actually looking better, that by the end of the season, especially, that's where you then you start to look and say, okay, maybe he does lose his job at the end of the season. We'll see. But yeah, I that's kind of how I interpret that.
Well, I have a little bit different feel on that, but
okay.
here's what I would say. He's got to, first of all, he's got to stay within his character, who he is. So, some guys are rah-rah guys. He's a organized, he's a work guy. He's an analytic guy. That's what he's been successful at. So don't get outside your character. And the way I look at it is, if he's telling us one thing and then going in behind closed doors and saying these things. So everything you just said is absolutely right. And I would go in and I would say the same thing to my team. I would say, you're dropping balls, and I'm calling the people out. I'm calling the crappy plays. Jerry Jeudy, you're dropping balls. We can't block anybody. Inside, you guys are Pro Bowlers. We haven't moved. Blah, blah. I'm going through all of it. You know what? And I'm the king of this. I'm in charge, and I stink too. So we're going to go out. Are we going to sit there and lay down and have everybody say we stink and the offense is conservative? Are we going to buck up and get after it? Because there's only two choices. You either give in or you fight. And that's really hard to do. Now, when you're rolling and everybody tells you how good you are, this is great. Like I went on, everybody, I had some issues with my family and I didn't get a chance to talk about it last week, but I love that last drive. Those last couple drives by the Browns. I didn't like the throw on 3rd and 11 because I thought they were going to run it again and punt it, and everybody hated it. I loved it. You know what? And you go back into the locker room. You say, you know what? I had my alphas on the field. You guys didn't get it done this time. You will get it done next time. They had to go 80 yards with Carson Wentz at quarterback. They did it. Okay. Next time they won't. But I'll take that scenario every time. If every game the Browns have a chance to win with their defense on the field and the other team has to go 80, I don't care what happened during the game. I'm taking it every time. And that's what you got to kind of say. You got to kind of stop, as coaches, you just got to kind of stop listening and do you and don't listen and go to work. And it's hard. And at that level, it's really hard because all of us are kind of, criticizing what they're doing. You got to have thick skin. And I know he does stay in character and figure it out.
Well, I think that actually sets up nicely This week's going to be an interesting game because it is two teams, both 1-5 on the season, both coaches who are dealing with some heat right now. And we just saw on Monday the first coach fired this season in Bill Callahan with the Titans. So, once the first domino falls, who knows? But I think that sort of sets the stage for a very interesting matchup on Sunday. Real quick here, Lance, I'll give you a minute here. Just what do you see from this Dolphins team that the Browns can maybe take advantage of in a game that I feel like is kind of a must win? Because if you lose to that team that feels like they're about to unravel in a major way, I think it says a lot about your team as well. So what do you see from this Dolphins team?
Well, they're in shambles. They don't block very well. Tua called everybody out for not going to meetings. McDaniel kind of runs a loose ship. That's how that's how he runs his show, and everybody does it differently. But this is a game they got to attack this offensive line. They got to make sure they contain Waddle. He's really good. A-Chain is the key, I think. They got to make sure he's a dynamic guy, and he's really good at finding mismatches against backers in the pass game, both from out of the backfield and in the slot. Defensively, they're very, very average. They don't stop. They're not terrible in anything. And I'm just early. I'm only into my offensive part of my breakdown, and I'll finish the rest of that tonight. Just a very average football team. They have a lot of injuries, a lot of nagging too, where guys are playing. Brooks, their linebacker inside, is a pretty good player. He flies around, kid out of Texas Tech. I like him a lot. They're just very they're very all over the place. They're very ununited in what they're doing. They're where the Browns will be in 3 weeks if they don't start getting it together, right? Where you have some teammates calling each other out. For them, it's not about scheme. Mike McDaniel does a great job with scheme. It's about execution, and you only execute in their type of offense if you practice really well. And they're not practicing crap, I don't think, because they look all out of sync. And remember, he's kind of one of the originators of all that movement and all that motion and all those shifts and things like that. So if you're not practicing at a high level and you can't pass protect, it doesn't look very good. And they look like they've thrown the towel in. To be honest with you, it's as bad as the Browns' offensive line is. Miami's is worse right now.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's going to be a big one on Sunday for the Browns, because if you lose to a team that pretty much is already thrown in the towel, I think that says a lot about your team as well. So we'll see what that looks like on Sunday. Lance will be back, of course, next Tuesday. I implore you, if you like what you heard from Lance and in this episode, make sure you hit that subscribe button to make Locked On Browns your first listen every day, wherever you get your podcasts, and at the Locked On Browns YouTube channel, because Lance joins us every Tuesday. And I always like to say, I hope people walk away from these episodes and they feel like they learned something about what the Browns are trying to do or whatever. So great stuff as always. For your second listen, check out Locked On NFL, wherever you get your podcasts, and at the Locked On NFL YouTube channel. You can also keep it local. Check out Locked On Cavs or Locked On Guardians. Thank you for being in every day here at the Locked On Podcast Network. I'll talk to you again real soon, Cleveland. See ya.